You're welcome to Contemplations, coming to you live from the UK, a program that analyzes issues from the religious and social perspective. Today we look at a very important issue, that is funerals in Ghana. So we begin with the subject for today, that is funerals. But before I introduce my guest, let me give you a brief intro about the subject. A typical funeral takes place for 3 days, attracting hundreds of guests and costing more than a year's salary. Some members of the community complain that these showy events have gone too far. We will discuss the Islamic concept of funerals and how simplicity and focus on prayer is stressed upon. My guests are the Amir and missionary in charge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission in Ghana, Maulvi Dr. Abdul Wahab Adam. Doc, you're welcome to the show. Thank you. We also have a missionary in the UK in the person of a Ghanaian missionary in the UK in the person of Abdul Ghaffar. You're welcome once again, sir.
Thank you.
So let's go straight to the point. Funerals. I'm sure both of you know what's the dimension that funerals have taken in Ghana. Funerals are supposed to be a period for sober reflection. What is happening now?
Yes. You see, in the physical, moral and spiritual journey that man and woman are destined to make in this life, one goes through different stages of progression. The Holy Quran tells us that there was a time when we did not exist. Man and woman didn't exist. Lam yakun shay'an madhkura. There were people, there were things that could not be mentioned. But then we were conceived in the mother's womb. We remained there for some time. We made progress there, and so we were born as human beings on this earth. But there comes a time when the faculties that God has given us to use on earth have come to an end. And the spiritual aspect of man has to be divested from the physical, because the physical then becomes an inhibition. Now when that happens, we call it death. And when death comes, we need to dispose of the physical body. And during that time, a number of rituals take place. The ritual of cleansing the body, the ritual of clothing the body, the ritual of prayer, the ritual of actually burying the person. That is, all that together is known as funeral. Now, in Ghana, what happens is, while it is important that this is done in dignity, extravagance also becomes a concern. And I think the aspects of extravagance and others that border on superstition will also be brought into focus.
Right, so we'll go into detail. So let me go to Maulvi. Perhaps let me ask you the same question. Periods for sober reflection. Somebody dies. And, you know, at times I ask myself, what are we thinking of? The person has left us. The Quran and the Bible tells us that there is judgment after death. So why should people engage in showy activities?
Well, as human beings, people try to copy their friends, and they try to vie with each other. If it so happens that a father passes away, and many people come and they spend a lot of money, then B will try to also do the same or do more than that. So the funerals have become ways of a means of showing who is more rich and whose funeral was the best. You see, so it has become a competition, and not actually, we've forgotten the spiritual aspect of it, that this is time for us to pray for the departed soul. And we indulge in other things that are unnecessary.
Right. So, Maulvi, let me come back to you. I have a personal, let me say, interest in this, because I've been contemplating why people would forget. Is it a case that people are gradually forgetting about the Quranic prescription of life after death, the biblical prescription of life after death? There will be judgment. So why don't we reflect on the lives of the persons who are gone, rather than, you know?
There are times when we value death more than life. There was a very, very interesting case in Ghana that was publicized very widely. A gentleman went to hospital, and some money was incurred. He used medicines on him and so on. But he couldn't afford it. And while in hospital, no relation of his visited him in the hospital. So when he got well, the doctor told him that, look, we have this bill to settle. And he said, I don't have anything, so I think the right thing to do is to tell my relatives that I'm dead. The moment the information reached the relatives, they all came. They came with a coffin, they came with money, they came with everything. And then the doctor said, look, there is some money to be paid here because there is a bill that has not been settled. So we got money to settle the bill. So they settled that, and then the doctor produced him live. You know, the patient was now well and hearty, and so he was produced to the relatives, and they were shocked because they expected him dead rather than life. It is because of what they get out of the funerals. First, of course, there is this ostentation to show off that we are wealthy, we can afford this, we can afford that. And the second is, there are people who have actually become funeral contractors because of what they will get out of it. So what happens generally these days in Ghana is the person passes away, and then he is put in the mortuary. I have come across a situation when a person has been put in the mortuary for as long as 6 or 7 years. There was something to settle in court about so he was there. But quite a number of times they will want to keep the body in the mortuary, and at all costs. Then after that, in the course of being in the mortuary, they are now organizing themselves for the actual funeral to take place. So sometimes they renovate a whole house. Sometimes they build a new house because guests will come from afar, from far and near. And so when they come, they should see that it's a nice house where the funeral is being held. And so they will spend money in doing that, not when the person is alive. Then after that, they are going to hire musicians to come and play, you know, band and so on, because people will have to listen to the music and also dance. Then they hire people who would be wailing. They are hired to wail. They don't have anything to do with the one who's dead, but they will wail. It's part of the funeral celebration. Somebody should be weeping and giving the impression that everybody is sad that the man is gone. And all these things happen. But then you need also to feed those who come. And so proper meals are prepared to feed them. And they don't want the person to be buried in an ordinary coffin. The only person who made a will that I know of was Ibrahim Oppong, who said they should use some type of simple, you know, wood to do the coffin. Otherwise, they order coffin from abroad. And though the timber goes from Ghana to the foreign country, they would like to get the coffin from outside, so that they would emphasize how important that person is.
Before I go to more there is something interesting, and I'm hearing for the first time from you that certain people are even hired to will. So let me ask you, without going into their minds, I'm sure you wouldn't also know what goes on in their mind, but how would they feel when you know that you've been hired to will on the death of somebody?
Well, he gets his money. If it's a lady, she gets her money.
And the tears come.
Oh, tears may come, but you know you have crocodile tears too. So, so tears may come or may not come, but they will be wailing. that such and such a person is gone, and so on and so forth. They do that. It happens.
How do we deal with the issue of costs?
The thing is, while this is going on, the one who has passed away has children who go to school. They need to pay school fees. They need to buy books. They need to organize hostel for them. And so what they do is they actually borrow money from elsewhere to go through the funeral. And you can imagine, if you go through all that expense in the course of the funeral, where are you going to get more money to pay back and also to make sure that the children who must be educated are properly educated? So there are times when they make up the money because people will come and give donations. But you cannot compel people to give huge donations. The little that they have is what is going to be given. So the economy of the country itself determines the type of income you will get from donations. So if the donations are scanty, it means that you are in trouble. You've not been able to pay back the loan. So here they will start then to curse the one who has passed away. Instead of now remembering him, you know, and doing it in a manner that is becoming of a person who has led full life on earth, they will now be cursing him. Look, because of him, look at the expense that we have incurred. And now we cannot even educate the children in school. So some of them will become dropouts. It's a big social issue. And I don't know of any important personality in Ghana who has not spoken against it. They in fact make laws at the local levels, at the palace levels, that look, we should not have extravagant funerals. First, there mustn't be any alcoholic drink.
Just to chip in, those who make these laws are themselves, you know, adherents.
That is the problem. You see, they make the laws because they know that there is a problem. But because of the pressure of society, they themselves cannot abide by those. And so others also take advantage. That if those who made the laws are not that very particular about it, you see. But in Islam, we make sure that what Allah wants us to do is what is done. First, we give it a bath, and then we shroud the person. And then we have a simple coffin, because it is the physical body that is to be disposed of. And there is no need to put him in the fridge. Because if clinically it has been proved in a hospital that the person is dead, then remaining in the house is no longer necessary.
I'm sure you wanted to add something.
Yes, besides, culture is dynamic. You see, culture has to change in accordance with the changes that take place in society. If there is culture which is not conducive to the present, you know, state of things in any particular country, you have to abandon that culture. There are so many of such cultures that have been abandoned. You see, there was a time when if a person died, like they did in Egypt, you have to bury somebody who would be serving him and so on. So those things have been abandoned because, I mean, they are not helping anybody. It's not the type of culture that promotes, you know, social progress and development. So those have to be abandoned. And so if somebody even pleads culture for such extravagance, it cannot be accepted because culture should be made to be dynamic.
Right. Mr. Abel, let's come to the Islamic way of disposing. It's interesting to know that there are two schools of thought on the issue of disposal when it comes to Muslim. And one school of thought has lauded the Islamic way. Yes. And the argument is that it is less costly, it is less simple, extravagant. But then there has been some criticism from other people who claim that those who applaud the Islamic way just hide under the umbrella of cost, because they believe that they may not actually like it, but because they think that it wouldn't cost much, they are for it. Then another school of thought, funnily, saying that, you know, it's not nice. Somebody dies, you can look at the face of the person fresh, and then you people just take him and bury him or her. And then it is done with dispatch. They have problems with a quick way, and they believe that we don't seem to have the milk of human kindness in us. Okay. How do you see these schools?
The thing is, as I've already observed, you know, nobody can bury a person in Ghana or anywhere else in the world for that matter if a death certificate has not been obtained from a medical doctor. So it is only when it has been proved clearly, beyond any shadow of doubt, that the person has actually passed away, that he is buried. And Muslims are not an exception. So if it is proved that the person is dead, whether the body is fresh or not, that is immaterial. The body may be fresh, but the spirit is gone. And that was what was meant, to divest the physical body from the spiritual. And so after that, keeping it in the house is no longer a necessity. It's not necessary. You see, and so you cannot say that the person is fresh and you're burying. If one is saying that you bury a person when you have not got a death certificate, then of course I agree with you. Because in that case, there's a possibility that it can be revived. But once there is a death certificate, that argument wouldn't hold. So that's one thing. And I agree with those people who say they agree with the Muslims, that there is no need to keep the person in the mortuary. Whatever situation the person was found in when he or she died should be made known to everybody who comes to mourn with the family. It's not necessary to build a palace when you don't have the means to do that. The palace was meant for the person when he was alive. And if the person is no longer alive, what is the point in building a palace? You build a palace after borrowing money, and you might not even have the pleasure of staying in that palace. So there is also no need to do that. Now, with regard to the coffins, what happens now is people are becoming wiser. They have brought this coffin from abroad. It's very, very expensive. And they know that if they bury the person in this coffin, somebody will come and remove the body and throw it away and go and resell the coffin. So what they do is they deface the coffin when the body is in, before they bury the person.
They deface completely.
They saw that the coffin is no longer the expensive thing that people will consider it to be.
Then why buy it?
That is the thing. So these are contradictions in thought and contradiction in action, which is not helping the development of the country. That's the point that is being made.
Right. Mobigafa, there is one issue. I don't know if you want to add something before.
That shows how money is wasted. If actually it is bought and to be defaced off, what is the use? And one other thing, when these bodies are kept for periods and they are laid in state and people go in, at times nobody sits there. Why? Because the smell. You can't bear it. I happened to go on a such funeral with a friend, and I didn't know whether they stitched the mouth of the person or what, because it was such that they stitched it.
Right.
Yes.
So we are told we have Dr. Fidelia Ohime of the Department of Sociology of the University of Ghana on the line. Doc, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Right, Doc, let's go straight to the issue. You have done some studies on funerals. I want you to come along with a sociological perspective about funerals. Why are Ghanaians drifting to funerals? Spend a lot of money on funerals, that money they could have used to do other things. Yes,
sociologically, if you look at the history of funerals in Ghana, initially it had its religious undertone. It was believed that when somebody dies, that is not the end of life, and that the person goes on to another life. And those that go on to another life, we call them ancestors, So it was a belief that we have to send them off very well, so that when they go to the other side of life, they would bless us. And the belief in ancestors permeates all Ghanaian society. So that is the genesis of our beliefs and the religious background to our funerals. And so we have carried on those beliefs right from our forefathers that we have to send off the dead very well, because if we don't, they might visit us with, hardship, famine, diseases, and so many other things.
Right, Doc. You have given us a general perspective about the issue with the emphasis on history as a guide. But then you realize that then there's been some significant changes from history, because you see all sorts of practices coming into being. Let's go use extravagance as a particular example. Why are people spending so much on funerals?
And our funerals have always been like that. If you go into colonial archives, the British, even at that time during colonialism, were worried, about the seemingly extravagance of our funerals. And I believe that many additions have been made to our funerals because of what we call in sociology social change. Before then, people stayed together. People lived in the same community. If they lived far apart, it was just a few kilometers away. And then those who came to the funeral brought their own food and palm wine to help with the funeral. So drinks have always been served at our funeral. But in modern times, you have people traveling all over the way, all over the country. People from Kumasi will travel to Accra for funerals and vice versa. So now when people are traveling for funerals, they don't go with foodstuffs, they don't go with drinks to help with the funerals. They would rather have to be served. So you realize that at funerals, we serve food. And then the drinks that people are supposed to carry to the funeral, now they have made it into money. So then you have funeral donations. And now you have people traveling all over the world. People have gone to Europe, people have gone to North America, even within our own cultural setup. So we intend to import some of the things that we find in other countries into our own. So for instance, laying of wreath was not part of the Ghanaian funeral culture. This was done in Europe and North America.
Right.
But we have imported those things into our own culture, so that now at Ghanaian funerals, we have people laying wreaths. Yes.
Right. Doc, we wish you could continue, but that's all time will allow us on the show. So we want to thank you very much for your contribution. So that was Dr. Fidelia Ohime of the Department of Sociology, University of Ghana. So, Mr. let me come to you, but we have some few minutes to go. But then I just don't want you to go before, without talking about this. Many people think that the reason why they've shied away from Muslim funeral is that they think that when the dead body is put down there, the soil is put on the dead.
No, that's not
briefly.
No, that's not the case. First and foremost, we are very, very particular, like Doctor said, that the focus should be on the next world, because it's leaving this world, it's going to another world. So it's a continuation of life on this earth. So we need to properly wash the body, we need to properly clothe the body, shroud, and then we need to pray for the body before the burial. Now, we have a system of digging the grave, and the soil or sand doesn't touch the body. So that is how it is. It's not true.
Right, we wish we could give you more time to talk on it. So your final comment, Morvi? Well,
so I think we must insist on praying for the departed soul, because instead of spending much money here, we should rather pray. Whatever sacrifice we may give on his behalf, whatever prayer we should do on his behalf, will reach that person. And I think that is the best thing to do than spending the money ourselves here.
Right, so that's how we draw the curtains on this week's edition of the program. We are back same time next week. You've been listening to the Amir and missionary in charge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mission in Ghana, Molvi Dr. Abdul Wahab Adams. and Molvi Gafar, who is a missionary here in the UK. So till we come your way, same time next week, stay blessed and Allah be with you.